Welcome again, ladies and gentlemen, to the Philosophy of Art and Science. For 5 years, my great um, Blue Yeti microphone had served me. It just died recently, and today our returning guest, friend of the show, Subdeacon Daniel Kakish, is our first guest with the new Blue Yeti microphone. So shout out to that microphone and welcome back, Subdeacon Dan.
Thank you, Deacon. I appreciate you having me on always.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. I think a year ago or so, I got to be on your show, The Lion's Den, which has been, of course, blowing up. Where before you had your own show as a podcaster, you were, I think, the #1 guest all over the place on the internets. I understand the 3 original apostolic sees as Rome, Alexandria, and Antioch. And for me, it's a very clear case. We have 2 of the 3, so that's majority in terms of Christendom. And then from Alexandria and Antioch, liturgically, I think more from Alexandria, but we have a number of influences from Antioch. You guys did work and extended to the Armenians and Ethiopians. And eventually we reconnected with some lost Thomist Indians, not Thomas Aquinas, but of the Apostle St. Thomas. And they had former East Syriac roots. But there's a lot of kind of confusion about like what exactly is Antioch. And you're my personal favorite defender of orthodoxy online. Can you talk about your Syriac Orthodox tradition and like all the plethora of Latin, Greek, and Syriac groups that kind of also claim Antioch? Because I saw a great letter for our sad brothers and sisters in Syria that I loved with a Greek, Syriac, and Latin patriarchs signing off. And the Greeks, by the way, just to say, they get mad when I call them Greeks, but they call themselves Greek in Arabic, and I have seen that.
Yeah, it's funny. Before I answer the question, would you agree that because I've always thought the Tewahedo tradition, it's liturgically influenced by Alexandria, but spiritually by the Syriacs. Would you say that that's a good way to put it?
I think that's very fair. And I think some of it is inadvertent, and I think some of it is advertent. What I mean by inadvertent is I think the fact that we have a Semitic language and culture, whereas, the Copts adopted Arabic later. Before Arabic, they had Coptic, and just being honest, like the main fathers, Athanasius and Cyril of Alexandria and Clement of Alexandria and Origen and all these people, they wrote in Greek. And so they were very Hellenized. So they kind of went through 3 different languages, one which is Indo-European, another which is Afro-Asiatic, Coptic, in its own branch, and then finally Arabic, and that maybe leads to some of the like theosis disputes we see between Pope Shenouda and Father Mata al-Maskin, right? Like you see that, whereas the Syriac and Ge'ez or Aksumite tradition was always just Semitic, So I think like I would also guess that Saint James, the brother of the Lord's Church, pre-70 AD destruction, I bet that would have been very similar to ours too. And then you have like the 70 AD destruction, and then later Jewish revolts, which kind of it really mangled that community. And I think sometime towards Cyril of Jerusalem, it kind of gets reestablished, but then it becomes more Gentile-y, where it was definitely more Semitic before. And so I think because of that, there's inadvertent similarities. And I've done a little bit of scholarship like that on my own. Just like one simple example, the word rainbow in Hebrew, and I bet in Aramaic and Syriac, is the same in Ge'ez, is this ust or kasht of, so it's like the bow and arrow of the sky.
Yeah.
Which people, they think of these giggles when they think of like color rainbow or the other nefarious things in today's age. But they have to understand, like in the story of Noah, God said, I'll never kill you again with the flood. He didn't say, I'll never kill you again. And now he has a bow and arrow in the sky.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it.
But then there are advertent interests where we straight up get Syriac sources translated often via Arabic into Amharic and Ge'ez.
So with the Syriacs, what you mentioned, Cyril of Jerusalem, I remembered Eusebius of Caesarea. He talks about when kind of the succession in Jerusalem goes to Gentile instead of she gives the time for it. What's interesting about the Syriac case is that being in Mesopotamia, it doesn't have the opportunity to Hellenize in a substantial way, whereas the Levantine part does.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think the tradition you guys have about the nine, was it the nine?
Yes, the
I
nine
think
saints.
they're from the Mesopotamian part, if I remember correctly.
It's very confusing. Sometimes they're called Greco-Syrian. Sometimes they just call them Rum. They just call them Romans. So
Okay.
it's like very confusing in the literature. They're either from Mesopotamia or they're Levantine.
Gotcha.
Obviously, the first guy, Abbas al-Amma, our first metropolitan, was from Tyre. So he was definitely from the Levantine side. The nine that came later, it's not clear, but I would probably guess they're Mesopotamian as well, but
Okay.
I don't think it's clear.
Interesting. All right. Sorry, Deacon. What was your question to me?
So my question is, as the defender of orthodoxy, but also as we talked about the first time you ever did my show 5 years ago, like your background coming from other traditions and finding the Syriac Orthodox faith, and people could find that on my channel, so you don't have to repeat yourself. Like, can you talk about basically? There are all these names that people have that people don't understand that are all associated with Antioch. And recently, for example, there was a letter from the Greek, Syriac, and Latin patriarchs. I know just off the top of my head, there's like a Greek who's Orthodox and a Greek who's Catholic. There's the Maronites who are Catholic, but then there are, and they are West Syriac, but then there's like our tradition, which is also West Syriac, but it's Orthodox, like in the way we say it, Oriental Orthodox, Miaphysite Orthodox, my Afro-Asiatic. I know you have your own term as well. Then there are the ones from Iraq, right? The Chaldeans who are Catholic, and then like the Assyrian Church of the East or the Nestorians.
Yeah.
Like, could you just make sense of that? Because that's very confusing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it is confusing. It is. Okay, so there are currently 5 claimants to the See of Antioch, and 3 claimants to the Church of the East. We're not counting the Indians in this.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, because there's going to be a lot more confusion. So, so the 5 claimants, there are the Rum, who you mentioned, the Byzantines, the imperial church, if you will, the church that was the political extension of Constantinople when the empire was there, which the Chalcedonians, whatever name you want to give them, the Greeks, the Greek Orthodox. In Arabic we call them Rum.
Yeah,
Rum. In Syriac they call them the same thing. So and then there is the native continuity of that original church in Antioch that comes down from St. Peter, that church which the patriarch and his synod of bishops and their successors continue to elect, which is the Syriac Orthodox Church today. Now these two have uniate branches, meaning branches that split off to enter communion with Rome within the last, say, 250 years. The Syriac Catholics, corresponding to the Syriac Orthodox, and the Melkite Catholics, corresponding to the Greek Orthodox. Now, the 5th one is the Maronite Church, the Maronites being actually entering into communion with Rome during the Crusades. So they're probably the earliest Eastern Catholics, Eastern Unionists, and they have a patriarch of Antioch. So these are the 5 claimants: Greek Orthodox, Greek Catholic. In Arabic, we call them Rum Orthodox, Rum Catholic, and then Syriac Orthodox, Syriac Catholic, and the Maronites, who are Syriac Rite, but their melodies and stuff sound like the Rum. They don't sound like the Mesopotamian Syriacs. So now, extending over to the east side of the Euphrates River, now we're going, you have the Church of the East there, and you have the Syriac Orthodox there, and you have the Syriac Catholics there. You do not have the Rum in these areas. The Rum are Levantine purely, and the Maronites are too. The Rum and the Maronites are Levantine. Syriac Orthodox, Syriac Catholics, they come over both sides, the whole Fertile Crescent. So in Mesopotamia now, you have essentially four patriarchates interacting with each other. Like I said, Syriac Orthodox, Syriac Catholic that are based in Antioch, and then the Mesopotamian churches. In addition to those, the Assyrian Church of the East and the Chaldean Catholic Church. The Assyrian Church of the East has an old calendarist split off called the Ancient Church of the East. So there's these three now. His Holiness, the real defender of Orthodoxy, His Holiness Mar Ephraim II, he established a meeting. I think this year is going to be the second or third, of it, where it's the heads of all the Syriac churches that they meet once a year. Assyrian Church of the East, Ancient Church of the East, Chaldean Catholic, Syriac Orthodox, Syriac Catholic, Maronite. They all meet once a year because they all kind of share this original Syriac tradition. It's the same deposit in the early time that they all come from, whereas the Rum have that origin, but they've gone to like a different rite, so they don't use Syriac anymore. They don't use the Syriac rite. They don't use Syriac saints or anything like that. So that's like a different thing. It just happens to be in a close part of the world. So that's how it worked out. The Church of the East, if anyone is familiar with the establishment of Christianity in Mesopotamia, the twin brother of St. Thomas, by the way, Toma just means twin. It doesn't mean, that's not his real name. It was a nickname because he was a twin. So his twin brother, one of the 72, his name was Mar Edde. Edde, Thomas sent him, Jesus via Thomas sent him to Mesopotamia, to Edessa, while Thomas went to India. So Edde evangelized our ancestors, King Abgar and the whole kingdom there, and they converted. Now Edessa at the time, besides the vassal kingdom that I just mentioned, it was considered part of the Roman side of the empire, not the Persian side. So Edessa was functioning as West Syriac, if we're being anachronistic about it. And then during Roman-Persian wars, it's kind of switched because it was close to the border, whatever. Now, so this kind of shared Mesopotamian tradition, the Syriac Mesopotamian tradition, was happening during a time that there was no distinction between, like Ephraim. No one was thinking, I'm Church of the East. I'm not Church of the East. I'm Church of Antioch. It wasn't.
It was too early.
Exactly. It was too early. And so Antioch actually requested of the Church of the East in the Synod of 410, Mar Ishaq, to begin to function independently. For practical reasons, it was too difficult across imperial borders like that. And then by 424, by the time of 424, you could see they're clearly their own thing. By that time, 410, it's kind of, it takes the training wheels off the bike, and then in 424 they're up and running. So the relationship was always there. Their synods happened. A representative of the Church of Antioch was at their synods. When they wanted to communicate with the churches in the Roman Empire, they would communicate through the Patriarchate of Antioch. So that the connection was always there between these two sees. So actually, as Syriac Orthodox, what we see even until now the most natural relations, the most like where we could still go to each other's stuff and not feel different or not feel not at home. Um, hear the same sounds. It's like if you go to your mom's house and you go to your mom's sister's house, it's the same vibe. It's not you don't feel like you're at a stranger's house. It's still your family. Because you hear the same sounds, you smell the same smells, everything is the same. Is the Assyrian Church of the East with us? The
I have noticed
units,
that as well
yeah,
as a quasi outsider insider.
right. Like I went to a Chaldean mass, I don't know, some time ago, and they knew I'm a Syriac Orthodox subdeacon. So they asked me like, "What do you?" They haven't been to our mass. They asked me, what do you guys chant like? Do you guys chant like the Greeks or like who? Like, what do you sound like when you're chanting? Because I said we have a lot of your hymns, but we don't chant them like that. And then I told them we sound like the Assyrian Church of the East because I know they would be familiar with that. And they said, oh, like they weren't because they don't sound like the Assyrian Church of the East. We do, and the Assyrian Church of the East sounds like us. So, and when I say Assyrian Church of the East, I'm including the old calendarists with that. There's no real difference there. Um, and I think because both of these have preserved kind of a non-unit, for the most part, a non-unit kind of purely Eastern way of keeping the Syriac tradition.
That was a fantastic explanation, and that's kind of surprising that the Chaldeans don't sound like the Assyrian Church of the East. I would expect because they're in Iraq that they would. There are some that I see.
The good priests do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you because I'm actually working on some scholarship. I almost got something done at this school, this Catholic background that I work at, but there's this play that I have seen the Chaldeans do called Gayasa about the thief or the criminal.
Yeah.
Do you do Malak al Gayasa? Do you do that in the Syriac Orthodox?
Yeah.
So in our tradition, we have the text. Okay, some parishes, and you act it out as a play.
Right. That would be two deacons.
Mm-hmm. So for those who don't know, it's a cherub with a flaming sword guarding a paradise, and you have the thief, or I like better the criminal, who's on. I don't know what the word Gaias actually means, but from what I know, is it thief? Yeah, but I like criminal because he's I don't know. He seems like an insurrectionist more, but I'm not sure about his crime.
Yeah.
But I hear thief a lot in English, and there's a fantastic translation by Malfono Sebastian Brock, who, all praise be to God, is in the Syriac Orthodox Church now from Anglicanism, where he translated, I believe, an East Syriac manuscript into English. And I was planning to share that actually with some of my students at a Catholic school. We'll see if we get an opportunity, but also with my local church community. If I'm given the ability this year in Holy Week, I'm going to share it, because what we have in our tradition is we have the text in Ge'ez and in Amharic. And just from what I've seen, I don't know if people do the shortened version, but like it seems like our version is like 3 times as long. And that often happens. We often get some Syriac source and then we multiply it, and we attribute it to Mar Jacob of Sarug. So tell me a little bit more about yours, but I might translate the Ge'ez or Amharic myself one day.
I'm happy to hear that it's being attributed to Saint Jacob, because it gives us another point with the Assyrians and the Chaldeans. It's like you're using Saint Jacob's thing, but usually among the lay Syriac population, whether it's Syriac Orthodox, Assyrian Church of the East, whoever, usually everyone would tell you it's Ephraim.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's great to hear. And obviously for me personally, Jacob is Ephraim, and by that I mean he's in the school of Ephraim. He's the disciple. He's the disciple of him. So for me, that's not a big issue. It's like I was writing an article today about just the people still arguing about Pauline scholarship. I saw some recently on X. Some scholars were trying to talk about certain like 50 biblical words which you can find in Luke Acts, and the only other place you could find it is Hebrews. And guess what? Guess who was Luke was a student of? Luke was a student of Paul. So
Exactly.
even if you ultimately throw the authorship of Hebrews to Luke, he's getting like he's the amanuensis, he's the getting dictated to by
Mhm.
Paul.
Mhm.
And so and the church accepts it as scripture anyway.
Right.
But I really like this, what you're doing. And obviously you kind of blew up on the scene. Let's start with you, and then I'll go to some other kind of famous people who are out there now. But you blew up on the scene being a defender of our orthodoxy now as we've defined it, as a guest on all these different shows. Could you talk a little bit about that and how that kind of led you to eventually have your own show, The Lion's Den?
Yeah. I kind of just went with the flow. Like I didn't go for it. People. I have a good friend, Ihab Yassi. He goes by Elijah Yassi online. He's Syriac Catholic.
I've talked
He's
to him
actually.
before.
Oh, okay, awesome.
He's
Yeah,
always asking me about the Immaculate Conception.
his dad is Syriac Catholic. His mom's Chaldean Catholic. And he's the one who actually introduced me to the Church Fathers.
Oh, that's
Uh,
beautiful.
yeah. So this is I'm talking maybe around 15 years ago. um, so he had a Catholic friend who had he has a YouTube channel, and I guess they wanted an Oriental Orthodox person to come on for something. And so, yeah, so Elijah referred them to me, and so then I got on. So then I did a few more shows on that same channel. It was R&T, Reason and Theology, Michael Lofton.
I've
And
been
then,
on there twice as well.
yeah, so I used to be on regularly. Like I would be a frequent guest on there, round tables and all that stuff. And then there was they had this interschism. Craig Trulia had his own channel. Then after that, he started bringing me on that one because now there's two, right?
And I think you led to me getting on there, and I might do Craig's show again soon because there's this new Greek press scriptorium that has a book on Ethiopian saints, and I'll probably do a review on that and go back on Craig's channel.
All right, awesome, beautiful. I'm happy to hear that. And then I was previously, before the channel stuff, before YouTube, I was already friends with Eric Ibarra. So then Eric, me and him were doing stuff too.
And
William,
he's gone back and forth between Catholicism and Orthodoxy. I don't know where he's at now.
I don't think he was ever Orthodox, Eric.
Oh, I thought he was a catechumen at one point.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. And then William Albrecht, he had his own channel too. He was, because there was like there was kind of the Reason and Theology core group, and then everyone kind of then had their own channels. So then I kind of was going on all of these. And then eventually Sam Shamoun brings me on his.
Yes.
And then the lines then explodes after. Relatively speaking, for my expectations, which was nothing. It's bigger than I expected it to be. It's not big. It's not a big channel, but
it's our niche of the internet, and that's really I stress this much, and I've heard this from other friends who are creators. You really, like, to be really successful in this, 1,000 is enough, and I think you and I have both surpassed that. But like, really, 1,000 people are paying attention to you. Like Nietzsche at one point, I think while he was alive, sold like 100 books. So
wow.
Yeah, it's posthumously that obviously goes way more than that.
Sure, that makes sense. And it got bigger because of the series we did with Sam, the defense of Oriental Orthodoxy against others attacking it. There were series, like if you typed Oriental Orthodoxy on YouTube, the first thing that would come up were attacks on Oriental Orthodoxy. So then we felt like it's
by the likes of Jay Dyer, or is it other people? I know there's been a lot of online stuff.
Dyer, Erhan, that kind of clique. So,
or Peter Hears, who I tell anyone who listens, don't listen to his stuff. He's a heretic even in the Greek tradition.
Right.
And without jurisdiction.
Yeah. So it's like we're letting others tell people about who we are. Why don't we tell people about who we are? Why are we letting others do it? And so, and it was years coming. Like their series was years old by the time we even answered, and we answered from the way it happened with Sam. Sam actually reached out to us. We didn't ask him. Like Sam reached out to us, and he said, like Sam is friends with Marmari. Marmari.
So this is what I was gonna. This is what I was gonna ask you to do. Because I was gonna say so. Less religious, but he seems evangelical, is Patrick Bet David, who's Armenian and some type of Assyrian. You'll explain this to me more. I want you to tell me Sam Shamoun, Marmari Emmanuel, and George Janko, because these are all people who I think whose followings, especially George Janko, off of the Paul brothers, like fame, and then assembled his own. It seemed like Protestant Oriental Orthodoxy, because he had Ruslan, who's an Armenian Protestant, who I've seen, by the way, do talks with some of my Ethiopian Protestant friends. And then so they were missing from the table, the Ethiopians, but he had Armenian and the Syriac Protestant in their Christian Avengers apologetics. But these people, George Janko, Mari Emmanuel, Sam Shamoun, Patrick Bet David, can you say they're kind of because that's why I asked you to explain the kind of the lay of the land, because it's very confusing, and then it's sad to see some of them going for evangelicalism, but it kind of makes sense as an assimilation thing.
Yeah. So like you said, they're all Assyrian. Pabet David is half. I'm half. My mom is Assyrian. My dad's Arab. So Marmari, he was a bishop in the ancient Church of the East. And
that's the old calendarists.
Yeah, the old calendarist Assyrian church.
And he confuses people because he really loves Copts and has like an icon of Pope Saint Kyrillos.
Yeah, and he wears the Beiruna and everything. So his reason, like his excommunication from that synod, he has videos giving the grievances against him from the head of that church. And his defense for each point. He defends himself for each point. Obviously, I'm glad that we could be neutral about it. We don't have a horse in the race, we're outside the situation. I like him personally. And
he was stabbed in the eye by an Islamist. Right. He survived.
Right. And whenever he goes to Jerusalem, he stays at our monastery there, the Syriac Orthodox monastery, St. Mark. He said he saw Jesus sitting on the altar one time when he went. Yeah, he has many videos about it. So Marmari was here. Oh, sorry. Let me go over the other guys. So George Janko, Assyrian. Here's the problem for why Assyrians become evangelical. Assyrians become evangelical firstly because they have no idea for their inheritance of the Christian tradition that they've received. They don't know the gold there. No one's ever told them. They were never exposed to it. It doesn't mean anything to them because they don't know it exists. Second, when Christianity is explained to them in these cases, it's usually explained for the first time in their life by an evangelical. So then they're like, oh, that makes sense. I guess that's what we're supposed to be doing. That's how we're supposed to think. They're not thinking like, we received this from Mar Ad-Day in our language, no translation necessary. For 2,000 years, we've kept it. It's not occurring to them. They're not thinking that for them, it's not like they're leaving this and going to this. For them, they're in nothing. They have nothing, and they're just adding this now. There's not anything they're losing because it hasn't occurred. So that's Georgienko, is that he's so, I would say, scared of going back to thinking that he's not going to have anything. But he doesn't know the alternative, the other side, that rich Syriac tradition that you would have that makes actually evangelicalism look like a bag of chips. It would be nothing,
And Patrick Bet David kind of similar, or
I would say he's less adamant than Georgienko. He's more kind of ecumenical about it. Like, we're all Christian, it's okay. Whereas Georgienko is like, no, that's blasphemy, you know. And Sam was Assyrian Church of the East.
And
Had a
people say he's Catholic now, but he was evangelical at one point. But I don't know, is he Chaldean
he had a
Catholic or
reformed
Roman?
he had a reformed period in his life, and now he's going to Catholic parishes for sacraments. But I don't. For me, he's Catholic, but I don't know if he's 100% like, yeah, I'm done. I'm Catholic. That's it. I don't know if he's there. I'm not. I haven't talked to him in a while, so I don't know if he's kind of settled on it. But I like, in my interaction with him, I would interact with him as if he's a Catholic. Yeah.
And not necessarily deep in any of these Syriac traditions. I do see him quoting and pronouncing Arabic really well. I assume he's fluent in Arabic. I don't know if he knows any type of Aramaic.
His Assyrian is a lot better than his Arabic, especially spoken.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
he's fluent in Assyrian for sure. For sure, he's fluent in Assyrian. He's back to what I was saying earlier. The way that we got on the channel is because Marmari he was close to where Sam is, and Sam is a big fan of his, and they love each other. So Sam went to see him, and a lot of those ortho bros that you mentioned earlier were upset because Sam at the time was like the biggest free agent on the market. You know, which apostolic church is Sam Shamoun going to sign with? And so they're upset that he likes Marmari. The ortho bros are upset about it because they view Marmari as an historian or whatever. So Sam had posted a picture. They were upset. Sam was like, okay, you want to talk about Marmari being an historian? Let me bring on some guys who are going to show how you guys are an historian. So that's how we got on. And we didn't like expect it or anything. It kind of just went from there. And then the parabolani, I don't know if you know who they are.
I don't know them. Tell me.
Okay, the parabolani are these anonymous Coptic kids who kind of come on when we do shows. So they have their own channel now. It's called Apostolic Orthodoxy.
Okay, I saw that channel. I got it confused with, I thought, something similarly named. There's so many of these. There was like an Armenian guy in the Netherlands who had on this white convert from the Netherlands to the Syriac church. I was like watching that. Is that a different name? I don't know if you know that channel.
That's a different one. Yeah, that's Syriac, I think, the one you're talking about.
Yeah,
right?
but the host was like an Armenian guy who I think was convinced first
Oh,
by
Vartan.
Yeah.
Okay,
but
no,
he was convinced.
that's another Netherlands one.
Okay.
Yeah. So these guys, Apostolic Orthodoxy, the Parabolani, they have like 20K subscribers. They're a lot bigger than me. So yeah, we're getting out there, thank God. And obviously your channel I think is older than all of ours.
Yeah, it's but I don't know if I've been as consistent lately, and I've been trying to move more to writing, but I still love doing these conversations, and I'll never stop doing them, especially within our wonderful communion. I wonder too if you would agree with me about this, and I'm wondering if I know some of those anonymous Baravali, because there's been some books coming out lately in the Coptic Church. I haven't reviewed it yet, but I'm supposed to read this neo-Coptic science fiction book that came out recently by just a Coptic layman. And then I know that there's the anonymous Coptic priest who has the Elements series, and I've been seeing a lot of people reading those as well. Actually, one of my students at school had it, and I was very pleasantly surprised to see a young Habesha reading that. And I've seen people increasing this literature. So literature coming out of the ancient Near East, including our part of Africa, has been coming out a lot more, and I appreciate seeing that. So so that led to then, yeah, you creating your channel. So are you doing similar things with the Lion's Den, or how would you describe what you did as a guest on other channels? Because you kind of got to go with the flow of whatever agenda they bring,
Right.
versus like your own agenda with the Lion's Den.
So if in real life, I think of myself as kind of an easygoing person. Like I don't have anything where I really strongly have to do this. Like if whoever I'm with, we adapt to the situation and we find something where everybody is happy. So it kind of is reflecting in the YouTube stuff. Because of my start, I'm not used to doing shows alone. It's weird to me, like sitting there talking to myself almost. So I have to I have to bring people on most of the time. It's more natural to what I'm used to. Recently, though, relatively recently, I have a few reaction videos, like one to Michael Lofton, one to Subdeacon Stefan Girgis of the Maronite Church, where I do go on alone. And the reason why is because I'm interacting with content to make a reaction to it. It's not like I'm just sitting there giving a homily or something. So in that case, that's fine. And then the video actually comes out shorter because I'm alone. It gets like 30 minutes, which that's what I prefer. I don't like the 2-hour ones that we do or the 3 hours. But so it's either that or I'm with someone. Like I'm either featuring someone or I'm a feature on someone else's thing.
And primarily, are these like Christological and kind of gathering like the councils? Is it about the councils that are coming up, like disputes about that? Like you always come with the receipts whenever I see you discussing those things, and it's so great.
Yeah, that was a big thing during the whole Oriental Orthodoxy defense time, like the series, the Parabolani Apostolic Orthodox. They're coming out with a new series. It's coming soon. I'm going to be on 3 parts of that. So that's going to be dealing with what you're saying. Recently, it hasn't been so much this. I think the most activity has been with William Albrecht regarding either anti-Protestant stuff, or we've had some shows with Dr. Gabriel Reynolds. I don't know if you know who that is, one of the foremost scholars on the Quran and Islam in the world.
Yeah, from Notre Dame, right?
Exactly. I had a few shows with him. He's amazing. And that's the type of dialogue I like having about Islam. This is my kind of, it's like, let's understand what each other are saying kind of thing. This is my preference. And then now there's the whole angel of the Lord dispute. I don't know if you're.
Oh my God, it's happening amongst Ethiopians too. I would love to hear what you say about it. I can tell you that like I've been tolerant of my friends who've been spreading a lot of this stuff, but I tell them frankly to their face. So this is not smack talk. I don't know what some of them mean when they say these things, and it appears to me as Greek philosophy, and I really do mean that.
I agree.
For me, Malak Yahweh. By the way, I was teaching this past December. We celebrate the 3 youth, and a large part of the book of Daniel uses Aramaic terms. I was looking at the Hebrew; it's biblical Aramaic, and I was reading it when it talks about the angel that was in the fire, and in Ethiopian church we interpret it as Gabriel. The text doesn't say Gabriel in chapter 3 of Daniel, but later on in chapters 8 and 9 he specifically is specified as the angel. But then this idea of a son of God, and the Aramaic of Daniel says Bar Elohim, and you would expect the Hebrew is not that different, would be Ben Elohim. But it says Bar Elohim. I was looking at that Aramaic written in the Babylonian Aramaic script, which modern Hebrew is written in. Yeah. And I was trying to explain to people like, okay, this is like a messenger of God, or a son of God, and which means he has some resemblance. He's a spiritual being rather than a flesh being. But for me, it's like you begin by saying this is the messenger of God or the angel of God, or the angel of the Lord, or angel of Yahweh, however we're saying this. And then you say that this figure kind of prefigures or is a type or an analogy that we draw. And all the angels' names point back to Jesus. Gabriel is, as we know, it's the strength or the strong man of God. Michael is who is like God. It's a rhetorical question. No one. That's why he sent his only begotten son, or I like his one of a kind son. It's my personal translation of
I like that.
Monogenes, because it's related to our English words homogeneous and heterogeneous, which is same kind, different kind, one of a kind. Right? And our wahad in the Semitic languages. Right? We say wal wahad in Ge'ez for that phrase.
Ibn al-Wahid.
Ibn al-Wahid, yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very, very good.
And then in Syriac, Ihidhoyo. Ihidhoyo means one.
Yeah. Same as our Ahadu, which is the beginning of our liturgy.
Yeah.
So like that's what I think. But is that where you're hearing it too? Because what I hear them saying is that he is the pre-incarnate word himself and not an angel at all, and all these other things, which to me is Greek philosophy.
So the dispute, it seems to be, the origin of it was Jimmy Aiken and Trent Horn of Catholic Answers saying that he is just an angel. He's not the pre-incarnate word. Sam Shamoun rejected this and put out episodes refuting that position. Someone named Astro, seems like, I think he's like this young Iranian kid, put out this long article about how he is the angel. He's just an angel. He's not the pre-incarnate word. These are all Catholics so far that I'm talking about. And
Iran
then
is Catholic.
Yeah, his convert. So Sam and William Albrecht now kind of doubled down in their refutations. And so in a couple weeks, there seems to be talks of a show on Sam's channel with William, Sam, myself, and Jay Dyer. This is what I heard. To kind of get each of us to give our respective positions for how we understand the angel of the Lord according to our tradition. Like I would go from the Syriac tradition, Saint Ephraim, his commentaries on these biblical passages. Who is this angel of the Lord?
Yes.
Who ate with Abraham in Genesis 18? Who was with the three youth in the furnace, the fourth one that looks like the son of the gods? Who is he? Or the one who told Samson's dad, "What do you ask my name for? It is wonderful." And the one who wrestled with Jacob, or in the burning bush, all of these situations.
And I love that because I go to Ephraim as well, and I've shown friends, and it's like Ephraim is verified by our Oriental Miaphysite communion. He's verified by the Greeks and the Latins.
And the Assyrian Church of these. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
He's the undisputed champ of the Syriac tradition. No, that's really great. So, and I appreciate that you tackled Christology, I think, in depth outside of people going and reading the 1,500 pages of the notes of Chalcedon themselves and making their own decision, which you could do at your local library. But now you're moving on to scripture, which I believe should be our great unifier, but it also will begin to highlight certain differences in interpretation of scripture that happens. But I think this is a good, healthy debate. And sometimes there's room for different interpretations. I've found this is where, even within our communion, you might find a difference between the Alexandrian and the Antiochian tradition. And I lean on Antioch in regards of matters of scriptural interpretation. And of course, we received our modified Alexandrian rite, which is really an Aksumite rite, because our anaphoras are all our own, unique, although they may be attributed otherwise. And then the first part of our liturgy is always attributed to Alexandria. So and you do this not as a layman, but you're Subdeacon Daniel. Can you tell me, I had asked you this before, because within our liturgy that we're speaking of, we actually have this part in our litany where we pray for the different ranks of the deacon. But in the Ethiopian tradition, sadly, the distinctions between the ranks have been lost. And basically, 8-year-old and 10-year-old boys are high deacons. And so Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And it kind of, there's a kind of outside of ordination, informal hierarchy and stratification that happens over time. Like in all seriousness, like I'm a deacon married with a child in my 30s. I'm not treated the same way as an 8 or 10-year-old is, right? Practically, but it becomes a de facto thing rather than a de jure or in writing. And I would like to match the writing with the fact. So I'd like to hear from you. Can you talk about like what the functions of the different ranks from, I believe the lowest one you said was Mazammerono, which any good ear will recognize as chanter. And
Yeah.
could you start there and kind of go
Sure,
up with the ranks?
So I want to say, from what I'm observing in the rites of Oriental Orthodoxy, there's four. There's the Ge'ez, Armenian, Syriac, and Coptic. So
100%.
it's, yeah, the Coptic Syriac, for the most part, you could say they're imperial. They were part of the greater imperial, jurisdiction. Whereas with Ge'ez and Armenian, no, they were outside of the Roman borders. So, and because of that, I think some deacon canons didn't apply there. They're non-applicable. Not the same issues, not the same part of the world, different situation, different canons, according to that community. So, like, this is why you have the situation of the Armenians and the Habasha. They have where someone can be a full deacon and not married and then get married. Whereas in the
Yes.
Coptic and the Syriac, we don't have this. The reason why we kind of get stuck at subdeacon, a lot of us, is because we have to get married first, or else we can't get married anymore.
Yeah, or you choose chastity like Deacon Ephraim,
Mm.
who a lot of people confuse for a priest.
Yes, and in that case, you just become a celibate. That's right. And so this is why you'll see like really old subdeacons and things like this. And then on the opposite side, like with in the Ge'ez and the Armenian traditions, you have like you said, kids who are full deacons because it's not going to change anything. The problem is that because the world is smaller and our jurisdictions overlap with each other now, which I still think about your idea until today from our first show together, where you said there should be one bishop of California, or for example, the West Coast or whatever, for the whole Orthodox.
100%.
Yeah, I remember this.
We're getting there. I don't know if you've seen the Standing Conference of Oriental Orthodox Churches in the New York, New Jersey area. I personally know Abuna Petros, who's the Archbishop of New York under the Ethiopian jurisdiction. And he's currently the official government of Ethiopia has literally, he flew to Ethiopia and they didn't allow him to enter the country. And he's the current scribe of our Holy Synod. So
Why didn't they allow him to enter?
For political reasons.
Wow.
And they stole several hundreds of copies of his books that he was selling as well. But he's like a political prisoner and a bishop in exile, the way Athanasius and stuff was, although not for theological reasons, for political reasons. He's kind of receiving persecution from the official government of Ethiopia. But what this has done is he's more active in his actual jurisdiction, which is New York and New Jersey. And they have been meeting. They have been meeting with all of these hierarchs of Oriental Orthodoxy a lot. And I think that's what's going to come of it, especially as there's a big English parish spot, St. Paul's Orthodox Tewahedo Church, which is growing in social media in DC. There are talks of potentially Los Angeles and Seattle following suit. And I think as those happen, you're going to see first the kind of governmental political lines between the Ethiopians and Eritreans start to melt. And then I think even within all of Oriental Orthodoxy, we'll start incorporating each other more, I believe.
So then the interaction, like let's say we're doing, what are they called? A concelebration of the liturgy.
Mm-hmm. Of Holy Qurbana.
Yes, exactly. Because of the difference in how the ranks are being given and understood, so then it causes issues in the concelebration of the liturgy between each other regarding there's this Coptic reader versus this full deacon Ethiopian kid. Like, where's
Those need to be resolved. Those need to be
yeah,
resolved, and I would like us to standardize to Alexandria and Antioch. And I say this as a very proud Ethiopian with no complexes.
yeah, they need to figure it out. The Assyrian Church of the East, because again, outside the borders, same like the Armenians and the Ethiopians on this. They have full deacons, like full deacons who can get married after they're full deacons. So it's this extra imperial thing. That's why the canons just didn't extend that far.
So can you talk to us about this Mazambarono or the
Yes,
chanters?
let's
And
do
I
it.
think I see some Copts have girls. Do you all do that as well? And is that the last rank? And then to reader, which we call anagonistus, using the Greek word for reader,
Yeah.
and then subdeacon and deacon.
Right. So as far as I know, the Copts, I haven't seen Copts that have female choirs. We have that. We call them Shamashiyatha, which means if you literally translate it, it's the female version of deacon. It's like deacon and
deaconesses.
Deaconesses. But they're not deaconesses in the sense of they can't get on the altar. There's no liturgical kind of function besides they're the choir that's chanting. The reason I'm clarifying is because it scandalizes a lot of people for some reason.
Yeah, I think someone had some image they were sharing at one point of like an Armenian nun who was holding the chalice or holding the censer as well. But I don't know a lot about these things.
Yeah, it's I mean, we can get into church history about it sometime, but there's always been cases where a nun could hold something or whatever. That you find that everywhere. Anyway, so Mzamarono, like you said, the chanter, that is the first rank, where the kid, usually it's a kid, maybe hopefully in the future it's not going to be kids. We're going to give value to would wear the white thobe. I don't know what they call it.
Yeah, we're going to dress cassock.
Yeah, on the altar, and there will be things given to is I don't know, sayings, prayers, chants given to the kid to chant because he's Mzamrono, so it means chanter or cantor in the old way of saying. And then the next step up is Qoroyo, reader. I think the
same root as Quran.
Yeah,
Quran. And even kol that you were saying is I think it's voice or sound in Hebrew, and in Amharic it means word.
Yeah. So the readers, it used to be in the liturgy, there used to be 7 readings of scripture. Now, depending on the jurisdiction you're in, there's either 3 or 2.
And what are they?
They're the apostolic writings, which would be Acts of the Apostles, James, or First John, or First Peter. A reading from one of these. That would be the apostolic writings. And then the second group would be the Pauline epistles, so from Romans to Hebrews. And then the last group, obviously, the gospel. Previously, the other 4 would be Old Testament.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Now the readers would be reading these until they get to the Pauline epistles. The Pauline epistles would be read by a subdeacon, and the gospel by the priest or whoever the bishop designates to read the gospel. Usually whoever's presiding over the liturgy. So, and so this is now what they're doing is, because the Mzamronos are so young, the readers get the roles of the Mzamron today, usually, because the readers are young too. Like the readers are like in high school or something, or middle school, high school. So then, if the Mzamronos are too young, then they'll give the parts to the readers. And then above the Qoroyo is the Diaconal, or the Subdeacon. The Subdeacon, you'll see, like I said, he'll read the Pauline epistle. They're usually kind of, for practically speaking, de facto, the subdeacon is the highest common rank among the diaconate in the everyday regular parish.
So it's very rare to come across a deacon who's higher rank than that.
Yeah, like some parishes don't even have a full deacon. Some parishes have multiple if they're like a cathedral or something. It kind of depends where you are. Like my parish has one full deacon.
And is it a rank unto itself, or is it seen as a stepping stone to the priesthood?
It could be both, depending on the situation. Like the full deacon in my parish, he's been a full deacon for a long time. He's just a full deacon. The problem is, you go to parishes, a lot of the times the full deacons are like honorary. They're just old subdeacons, so they just give it to them. But there's requirements for the full diaconate. It's not like, oh, the guy is old, he should get it now. You have to be able to know everything the priest knows how to do.
So is it a full-time job, or are they able to have like a separate 9 to 5 and do that?
Oh yeah, they could have a job. They could have a full-time job. It's fine. Above the full deacon is the archdeacon, which is even more rare. Like it's almost extinct.
And is that of the parish or of the archdiocese?
Of the whole archdiocese. He has to be in the cathedral with the bishop. And a lot of jurisdictions don't have an archdeacon. New Jersey has one. That's the only one I've seen.
What does he do that's different than the normal full deacon or high deacon?
From what I've noticed is he like just knows a lot more. Like he'll lead the morning prayers. He knows all the tunes. His Syriac is fluent. He like his place in the liturgy, like where he stands, the parts that he says in the liturgy, he says the same parts every time. So I'm guessing that's an archdeacon part, because I didn't grow up with one. You know, like even when I've been going to this parish like 12 years or so, we don't have an archdeacon. So, thank you. So so to see an archdeacon functioning in the liturgy is like a new experience, because I didn't have that. But he dresses like a priest, except he doesn't have the cape thing. He doesn't have that. But everything else he wears. Yeah. And from that, obviously, then is the priest, archpriest, and then in the Syriac church, usually it would go. We're done with the married people. With the married people, we're done, unless there's a widower. If you're a widower, you can go become let's say you're an archpriest widower, God forbid. Then you go to the monastery and you become a monk, archpriest widower. In that case, you then can become a bishop. Not an archbishop, but a bishop. So you'll be Sayyidna, but you just walk in the back of all the other ones. So there's a funny story in Syria. These guys are walking into this place where the bishop is, and then they ask him at the door, because you know the situation in Syria, like security. Who are you guys? Like, we're Sayyidna's sons. And they're like, what? They're like, we're Sayyidna's sons. So then they beat them up because they thought they were talking about Sayyidna.
Yeah, talking smack.
Yeah, they hit the guys. And then Sayyidna goes, what are you guys doing? And like, we're hitting. They're like, these are my sons. How do you have kids, Sayyidna? Because he's a widower.
Yeah, there's a technical, I think it's technically allowed in our tradition, but I've never seen any of them ascend to bishop. They'll just kind of keep them as a hiero monk. There's a famous Abba Thomas Finley, who used to be the main person answering everyone's questions in English on EthiopianOrthodox.org. He's my father from Los Angeles. He's originally a Scots, Irish, and French
Oh, wow.
Catholic American from the Midwest, from Kansas. But he's been in the Ethiopian church for 20 plus years,
Amazing.
and he's a widow. Actually, I don't remember the stat. Anyway, he's not married anymore. He's a Hiro monk,
Mhm.
and when people first found out he had like children, they were shocked. And then it's like one of his children is a priest in the Orthodox Church of America.
Okay.
And so his son visited one time, and people were like, "What?"
But that's the max he could be. Like he could be that, and then that's it. He
He
can't
could
go.
not become
Whereas,
patriarch.
yeah, he can't become patriarch, can't become archbishop / metropolitan. For us, archbishop metropolitan is the same. So the monk, though, like the betul, we call it, like the celibate monk, he becomes an archbishop / metropolitan immediately. He doesn't become a bishop first. He becomes that immediately, and then the patriarchs are elected from those.
That's the same as ours. Those last 2 points are the same as ours.
Yeah.
They had like the newest batch of them, like my current archbishop. They put them in like bishop / episcopos status for 6 months, and then immediate promotion for all of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very fascinating. I also want to move on to fasting practices, because I've heard different things. I know you've collaborated a lot with Abuna George Jeremiah Bassos. I don't know, is he at your parish or a different parish?
Canada.
Canada. Okay, good. Yeah, I've seen him travel, and I love seeing him work with the Indians as well, who we weren't throwing shade to. They're just under the Syriac tradition, because they were reunited East Syriac people with West Syriac at some point. I'll have to dive into their history at another point, but it's all just a reminder that the so-called later pentarchy that includes Constantinople and Jerusalem, all that came about later. As we're talking about, really rights-wise, it was Alexandria and Antioch are the original, and then by extension of the grace of God, the Syrians and the Egyptians shared this with the Armenians and with the Habesha, and then expanded from there. But some of this other stuff that happened, and I love your imperial distinction, is fasting practices. And so somehow attributed, I believe, to a king, Hiriakos or Hiriakal or something. I forget how they attribute it. It seems like the Ethiopians have 1 week longer than you all. We have like 55 days total just for the Great Fast or Lent. And what I had heard Abuna George talking about was kind of different modes which he would allow to be permissible. And I've only ever heard this kind of personal prescription on a one-on-one level. I'd never heard it kind of publicly spoken about, but the kind of hardcore level is basically you're vegan for 55 days and you don't eat between midnight and 3 p.m. And I think the softer version is midnight and noon. And then, but he got down to like even an easy level where he told some of his parishioners, do the first week, the last week, and every Wednesday and Friday. So I don't know what the general, what is generally said, but I'd like to hear about the Antiochian tradition.
There's even one step more of a hardcore option that Abuna didn't mention, which is if we're doing days on the old way of understanding days, which is sunset. At sunset is the next day, not at what's midnight. So at sunset is the next day. Sunset comes like today, for example, Saturday. Sunset, now it's Sunday. As soon as sunset hits, it's Sunday now until the next sunset. Then it's Monday. So from sunset to 3 hours before the next sunset, no, nothing. And then 3 hours before the next sunset, you have one vegan meal, and that's it until the next sunset. And then Wednesdays,
one meal a day then?
Yeah, one vegan meal a day, 3 hours before sunset. And then Wednesdays and Fridays, nothing at all.
Just water?
Not even.
Not
the
even
old way. That's the old way.
Wow.
You could modify it and put water if you want. I do that for Ba'utha, the Nineveh fast. So then he gives these, Abuna gives these options. And he gets it from the patriarch. trying to remember which patriarch it was. If it was Jacob the Third, I think. He gives a diaspora option for those of us in the diaspora who don't, because it's easier to fast back home. Like the situation is set up for you. Whereas here, nobody cares or knows about when we're fasting. This year, we're kind of lucky that the calendar's lined up
Yes.
with the West, but
once every 7 years or so.
So then in the diaspora, the minimum option is what you heard him say the first week, last week, Wednesdays and Fridays in between. It's not even vegan, it's pescatarian. During that
started to enter the Ethiopian tradition, and we thought it came from Catholic influence, but it's not clear. And it always cracks me up that you can have fish, like logically it just doesn't make sense, and some of our canon laws are explicitly against it, but some people still do it. It's like logically you can have fish, but you can't have like butter, dairy, like, or even eggs. Somehow to me, like a vegetarian medium would seem better than a pescatarian medium, unless you put like pescatarian as another stage before vegetarian. But so, you know what I mean? Like somehow like milk and eggs is like seen as crazier than fish. I don't understand it.
Yeah. I think the category of animal is higher in the ranks of the ancients than a fish would be in that category.
So they were evolutionists. It's the most ancient form of us, or
with the fasting kind of tiers. So because of this, but still, like, it's very, in my experience, it's very rare to see Syriac Orthodox who are applying that kind of Western minimum fasting rules. I haven't seen it even among the young people. I haven't seen it. What is the first week, last week, Wednesdays, Fridays? I haven't. The pescatarian, yes, it's common to see. But the whole first week, last week, Wednesday, Friday, I haven't seen any.
And is pescatarian, is that it comes just from Syriac, or is there any Catholic influence there? Because we know
sure
we get filet of fish Fridays in Los Angeles. Everything's cheaper at McDonald's.
Because I'm sure there's Catholic, because what the Syriac Orthodox Church in America was from the late 1800s. It's here. Back home, who are we living with? We're living with Chaldeans. We're living with Maronites. So there's a lot of intermarriages too. People get confused. Well, which one am I doing? If my mom is this and my dad is that. So I think a lot of it is coming from community economia, not so much zeal for the law, because it's becoming less practical.
Yeah, especially with all that web that we said of intersections within the webs, and like you're part of that too, as you said, through intermarriage, and by the grace of God you found our communion, and we wish more would do that. We know that it seems very difficult to become like Subdeacon Daniel Kakish, but with God all things are possible. So thank you so much for being generous with your time. And as we close out, people, like, one of my most frequently asked questions, I pinned my article on our Bible, which if people didn't catch that earlier, but Daniel was mentioning not Revelation, not Second Peter, not Jude, and other things, because we can do a whole nother episode on the canon, which is different within our communion, right? The Ethiopians or Habesha with the most excessive and loose canon, and the strictest canon of the Syriac, even in the New Testament. But more Psalms, right? More Psalms.
Yeah, 155.
Yeah. But what type of online or physical resources do you recommend so that we can have more people like you through the grace of God, in terms of like scripture and scripture interpretation, or patristics, or podcast? Obviously plug the Lion's Den, and anywhere else where you would trust people to go so that the sheep who are listening can be edified.
Sure. Thank you, Deacon, again for having me. I really appreciate it. I just want to give a quick, interesting nugget about the scripture thing you mentioned. I said 1 John and 1 Peter so that the listener knows what I'm talking about, but we don't call it 1 John and 1 Peter. We call it the letter of John. the letter of Peter, because we don't have another one. So we only have that one. So why would it be first if there isn't a second or a third? You see. So then it's interesting. It's an interesting like tidbit there. But
and how do you call it? Is it we say, for example, Malikta Yohannes? Is it anything like that?
the epistle?
Yeah, how do you say it in
Igarta or Risala in Arabic? That's what we would say. Yeah, Yohanna or Yohanun in the West Syriac, Yohannan, the East Syriac. Yeah.
and Petros, is it with a B or a P or an F?
Depends on the reader. Depends on who the guy is who's reading. So, like, I always say this to East Syriac, West Syriac people when they have, like, why are they saying the words weird? So I have to tell them, it's like if you're British and you're reading a sentence, and I'm Scottish and I'm reading a sentence, and you're American, we're reading the same sentence, but we're reading the sentence according to our accent. So
100%. The example I give them is an historic. The British, because they skip the H, they make it an rather than a historic.
Right.
An historic.
Yeah. So like you would hear Fatros, you would hear Potros, you would hear Botros. And then if you want to be super, super Syriac, which I'd be very impressed if I hear this one day, if they say Kepa or Kifo, which would be...
That's the best.
Oh, yeah.
Is the original Kefa, or by the way, we say that. That's how we write Cephas in Ge'ez in our Bible. We say Kefa. Is it Kefa or Kepa originally? Kepa originally?
So in the East Syriac, it's Kepa. In the West Syriac, it's Kifo.
Kifo.
Yeah. Yeah, it just depends on the accent of the person.
Beautiful. So yeah, plug Lion's Den and all resources that can make more Daniel Kakishes in the world.
Sure. Check out youtube.com/@Daniel Kakish, the Lion's Den. The channel's called the Lion's Den. The handle's @DanielKakish. Hopefully it makes more Jesuses. No Daniel, no more Daniel Kakish. And then more than that, check out Deacon Henoch's channel that we're on. Keep watching it. The Apostolic Orthodoxy channel, that's a big one. Very proud of those guys.
And you mentioned the paraboli. I don't know how to spell that. And
the parabolani. Yeah, I call them parabolani. I think it's what did you say? Endotherm, ethnotherm, right?
Yeah. And there's endonym, which is what you call yourself, and exonym is what other people call you.
Yeah, it's an exonym. They don't call themselves that. I call them that. Because the parabolani were like kind of Cyril's gang of monks back in the day. So they remind me of those guys. Dr. Michael Wingert's channel, plug that too. Yeah, and keep an eye out, guys, whenever we put out stuff. Subscribe to all those channels, like them, share them.
Absolutely. And Dr. Michael Wingert, one of his videos blew up. I was gonna originally do it with him, but I thought he wanted it chanted. So I sent him to your co-Agora alumnus, my good friend Deacon Alam from our tradition. And they did this video comparing the Lord's Prayer in Syriac and Ge'ez and how similar it was. And it's one of his, I think it's got like 100,000 views, something crazy. Like it just absolutely blew up. So definitely, Dr. Michael Wingert's. Last time you closed out with the Lord's Prayer in Aramaic. Can you do that again for us?
Sure. We'll do that, and we'll do Hail Mary also. أبونت بشمايو نتقداش شموخ تيثي ملكوثوخ نوي صبيونوخ أي كانت بشمايو أوف برعو هبلان لحمود صنقونان يومونو وشبقلان حوبين وحطوهين أي كانوا دوفحنان شباق الحيوبين لو تعالان نسيونو إلو فصلان من بيشو ميطول ديلوخي ملكوثو حيلو تشبحتو العالم علمين آمين شلوم لخ مريم مليث طيبوثو موران عميخ مبارختو أتبنيشي ومبارخ وفيرو دبكر سيخ موران يشوع وقدشتو مريم يلداث الله وصالو يحلو فين حاطو يهوشو بشوعث موتا آمين.